In the morning, the pancake house. Come on. 4 in the morning, we'll be rolling to my house. What? 5 in the morning, the lights go out. 6 in the morning, you can hear us.
Yo, welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. That boom back breakfast. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and your hosts today are Kalonji Yamachanga. We got Dr. Jared Ball, and we got Kamal K. Franklin in the building. The Remix Morning Show, let's go.
That's what I'm talking about, that pocket, baby. Rare Essence, overnight scenario. Jay-Z kicked in a couple dollars for this at one point, if people remember back in the day.
Okay.
They were actually on the same label briefly. They were like associate label mates.
What's that, Raping You Records?
Something like that. And Jay-Z had to kick in a few dollars for he had a track that where he did that 5 in the morning, whatever.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I appreciate that start, Rhea Doctor. Appreciate you on that one.
You know how we do, man. I had to show some love for the DMV area. So
it wasn't from New York, so you know.
Oh my goodness.
Sound like DC all day.
I can't with the
that is DC original the pocket funk. That is it's the best. Live instrumentation. Gets no better. Anyway, good morning to the Remix Black Power Media crew.
Good morning, crew.
What's happening?
What is it? The remixers, mix-a-lots, mix MCs.
You know, like people trying to hold it down for the mix-a-lots, but the remixers did win as
they did win.
Mix-a-lots got crushed. You know what I'm saying?
Just like in real life.
Political power comes from the barrel of it. You know what I mean? We'll get it started by saying that's it's so necessary today because of the fact that man, it can happen, my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously that is the lead story. Yeah. The barrel of the gun was flowing early in the morning, and President Jovenel Moise in Haiti was assassinated. And we're going to try to get into that a little bit this morning, but very interesting. Just a little bit of video reporting from the raid. Some Spanish speakers involved, sounded like maybe the DR was I don't know what that means necessarily, but obviously you think the DR is right next door. They might of course the US Embassy is down there. Who knows?
Down there, you know what I'm saying? We got CIA down there. You got so many different agencies. So
and of course a desire to continuously destabilize one of the greatest symbols of African revolution, and something that's still important to the global economy in terms of raw material, et cetera, and so forth. So,
and we're trying to get, as we speak, we're trying to get Amir Prosper, who is actually in Haiti, to come on later today and talk to us a little bit about what's happening. So we're still trying to make that arrangement. Things are fluid because not only, as you guys were mentioning, this assassination just took place, but even before that, the instability and a hurricane, which was just passing through Haiti. And so that was like knocking things over. The organizing or resistance movements were gearing up for another rally this weekend. And so we're trying to see what's happening with that, something that we were planning to cover live on BPM. So we're trying to get all those updates to folks later on via Haiti as we talk about the ongoing situations.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Just quickly, I do see in the chat, Moise was friendly with the West, but as was slipping my name, what was my man that was just assassinated in? Oh man,
Bodies can't start off friendly with the West.
Saddam. It'll come back to me. West Africa, but the assassination out there just recently. Friendly with the West, I mean, they might have someone they prefer who's a little friendlier. You know what I mean? You never know. And then honestly,
if you stir in the pot too much and the country's not stable for capitalist extraction, that's a reason in and of itself, right? You ain't got to flip sides. You might just stick your chest out too much,
right?
As would happen with Saddam Hussein, a friend of the West, who decided that he was in a position to grab more land and oil.
That's
and the
right.
West said, "Oh, no, that's too much power for you. You can't do that." And Panama.
Chad, thank you to the chatters.
Yeah,
Chad, my man out in Chad, who was assassinated a couple weeks ago. They were
Panama,
saying he was friendly with
Noriega,
Panama had Noriega, no doubt.
Yeah, who was a friend of the West, and then he decided, he could do some things on his own, and it was like, "No, we're just gonna fly a plane, and we're just gonna kidnap you. Basically, we're going to kidnap a head of state, no matter what we thought of him.
How about that?
We're going to kidnap a head of state and bring him to our country for trial.
And don't forget the sonic torture. Remember, they put the heavy metal rock music on the speakers outside his house.
That's right.
They did they would all of that.
They did that with what's his name out of Texas in Waco as well. That's one of the CIA tactics and torture. I mean torture tactics, FBI whole nine. But we gotta
can I just say real quick, but if you talk to people from Panama, the same thing you hear about everywhere else. They get rid of the supposed evil dictator and things just keep getting worse.
Right.
So after Noriega was taken out, the drugs and guns got worse, more violence, more, so, there's always this. And then I just didn't want to say, not myself knowing what happened in Haiti exactly, it is theoretically possible. It's not like the West is the only one who would be behind, like other people might be upset enough to move on even that way too. So, or another faction of the West. I mean, it's a lot that could be going on.
And we got to keep in mind too that capitalism is absolutely a pimp hoe system. So they're always looking for better hoes. You understand what I'm saying? So,
and we talked about the holetariats yesterday.
Yeah,
that's very important.
Yeah. So you might have been on the track too long and think that you responsible for making things happen. And they say, you know what? Let me tap your ass real quick. And it's just like Ron Brown. You can be here in the United States or anywhere else. So, it can happen.
You talk about Ron Brown that I saw on the aftermath on BET years ago after his plane went down, and the dude was on BET News. Remember, BET actually had a decent evening news program once upon a time. Yeah, and in that news program, they showed the two bullet holes in his skull. So I don't know. Anyway, I mean,
from a plane crash.
From a plane crash. Now, I'm just saying, like Dead Press said, who knows what secrets went down with Ron Brown. But anyway,
it was sort of like what was Gary Webb, who committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head twice. I mean, that was a cold ass move too. He should have got some type of award for having a hard ass head or something, because of the fact that I ain't never seen that happen before in all my days. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
It's the government, baby. But anyway, either way, homeboy in Haiti, you know what I'm saying? He's been skating on thin ice for a few years now. So, whoever did
so I mean, as Kamal said, we are endeavoring to get Dr. Prosper on, and we appreciate that effort, and we'll see if we can get some more thorough discussion of that. And of course, we'll be continuing to follow the story as it develops and more is known. But I don't know. It just seems like another one of these never ending, part of this pattern of Haiti's inability to recover from enslavement from that initial abuse. They just and their desire to be free. This perpetual cycle of what seems from an outside looking in punishment for having done all of that. So.
Amen. Well, may they continue to rise. You know what I'm saying? May they continue to rise. The warrior people out there. RemiX Morning Show is what you're listening to.
That's right. I mean?
It's where you're at today. We have a few people missing today. You know what I'm saying? MIA. But we're gonna make efforts to hold it down on this glorious Wednesday.
Yeah. Dr. Ichile will unfortunately not be able to bring the medicine bag today, but is going to be coming back stronger and more to the channel. So very shortly, Sister Kim Brown is dealing with some of her own, taking care of the issues in the world on her own right now. And so we shout her out, welcome her back as soon as possible. And of course, same thing, Sister Jackie, who is slowly returning to I guess, as they say, the new normal. So she'll be slowly coming back as well. But in the interim, we have to just rest as always on the strong shoulders of Sister May in the back, holding us down. and then you know, try to fail upward. There it is, fail upwards with my man, the ear doctor, and the rest of us. You know
what I'm saying?
Kamal Diesel in the building,
got
baby.
Some strong shoulders, you know what I'm saying?
Kamal Diesel in the building.
Just let
flex on it one more time,
Kamal.
Kamal. Flex on it one more time. They ain't ready for it.
He said,
I don't like it when you ask for it. Don't ask for it.
He said the biceps and shoulder is the same thing. Sun's out, guns out in Atlanta.
He said biceps and shoulders.
Calm it down. Calm it down.
Hey, we are trying to get folks to get us to this 10,000 subscriber mark. So if you know, if Kamal's got to do,
it'll be a full frontal. If we get to 10,000, a full frontal. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, wow.
I didn't want you to get to 10,000.
I'm saying, is that punishment?
Can we just go to 11 and say fuck it?
Is this a reward or punishment? Like, can we just skip to 11?
I ain't say what you get for 11. You know what I'm saying? The stakes are high. The stakes are high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Jared, we might have started this over. Erase all the subscribers.
Yeah, we might have just scrub BPM and start on over.
Yeah, like what happened?
I see my man is early. You know, you call these musicians to ask them to come through. They show up whenever they want to show up. They show up early. So my man, you know, like these brilliant cats. What did my man from Seinfeld say back in the day? The delicate geniuses. We got to work with them. You know. So we are gonna at some point this morning hear from my man DeHondo Smith. And when I say, anyway, people just don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be a session musician, to be a professional, not in the front, but also beasting on those who stand in front. You know, the person on the person in the front is not often the most talented on the stage. You know what I'm saying? So one of the reasons why a lot of cats sound good is because of people who don't want the spotlight. So we're going to hear a little bit about, you know, that side of the music world, and hopefully get a taste of this man's skills, because multi-instrumental genius is what I'm talking about, a DMV product. So, and we are going to, you know, hopefully hear from Dr. Prosper and come back to this issue on Haiti. Of course, we got the news coming up in just a few minutes, and to help us get there, we got the ear doctor too. So.
No doubt. Sounds like it's gonna be a dynamite show.
Doctor.
RemiX in the morning. Ear doctor.
Fellas, what's good? How
y'all more like Farmer Ted this morning.
I man in plaid.
A black Chucky.
I'm trying to get my dress shirt game up like Ball over here. You know what I'm saying?
This cat look like the Black Howdy Doody.
Look like I bring the picnic to the park. Anyway.
Hey, by the way, I meant to tell you this when we were on air. Somebody sent me a clip from Tyrese apparently doing some video visit to his mansion, and he talked about the fake Oscar that he got, that he ordered to the house so that he could, you know, as an aspirational thing, and he called it the Blosker. Or for bootleg Oscar. And I said, you remix show ear doctor stealing little motherfucker. You already crushed my light-skinned dreams back in the day with that Coca-Cola song, and now you coming back stealing from my other light-skinned brother, the ear doctor, with the Blosker?
Hey, but check it.
Shame on you, Tyrese.
That might be real because of the fact that actually the owner of the studio and Tyrese had a run in and whatnot. So you know what I'm saying? As far as playback, shout out to Loose. Loose. Yeah, Tyrese tried to play our bands in them, man.
Hey, when you set trends, that's what happened, man. That's what we do here.
That's what we do.
Black Power Media. So let's keep it moving. Let's get to the weather report. How about that?
RemiX?
Okay. Whether or not.
Weather report.
Yeah. It's the weather report. Yo, it's the weather report, whether you know it or not. It's the weather report. What's good, people out there? This is Black Power Media. This is the RemiX Morning Show, and I am no other than the Ear Doctor. So check this out. Today, we're going to give you the weather report. Where should we start off? Let's start off in Augusta, Maine. I don't know how many of y'all actually been to Maine. I haven't. Have no need to go to Maine. But Augusta, Maine, we got a high today of 78 degrees. Now, let's take it down south a little bit to Playa del Carmen, Mexico. That's Playa del Carmen, Mexico. They got a high today of 87 degrees. Now, let's take it over to the motherland. Let's go over to Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi, they have a high today of 70 degrees. 70. That's not too hot. It is what it is, though. Now, let's take it up to Berg, Germany. That's right, Berg. Big up to Berg Avenue up in Trenton. I used to stay on Field, Mary, and Berg Avenue is right over there. But Berg, Germany, they got a high today of 76 degrees. And now let's take it to Las Vegas, Nevada, who has a high today of 112 degrees. Listen, that's hot as a mug. And it's like, yo, a lot of people go to Las Vegas to go gamble and go to casinos. That's basically all it is there. I can't see myself going there unless I'm going to gamble. And I ain't a gambling man. I like to make sure my money come how I put it out. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm going to say that Las Vegas, Nevada is hotter than the sisters that's in the other Olympiads that's in trying to make it to the Olympics that's mad because a lot of y'all are canceling because your girl Sha'Carri Richardson was trying to get canceled from the Olympics. It's a lot of other people that's in the Olympics and making it, so don't cancel just because of that. You got to think about it. If you're going to a job and you know you about to get a job, listen, stop by the gas station and get some of the fake pee. That's what you got to do if you're going to get a job. She knew she was about to go to the Olympics. Go get some fake pee and then go take your test. But what do I know? I'm just the air doctor bringing the weather. So let's get back to the morning show, y'all. All right. Yeah.
It's the ghetto way to keep a job. What's going on?
I mean,
even your boy had to hit the niacin at one point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
I'm saying, hey, these people got regular jobs like everybody else. You know, if you about to go get a job and you got a piss test, that you got to either get a lot of water, some apple cider vinegar, or go by the store and get some of that fake pee. Come on.
First of all,
what gas station? I'm sorry, I
don't know about what gas station.
Gas stations got it.
I haven't been like hooding it up for a while. So there's some gas stations you can go to.
It's right next to the Spanish Fly.
Okay. Yo, can I get that fake pee right there? No, not that. I want it got to be more yellow. Get that one. Get that one.
You could go to the BP gas station and get it.
Two things.
Naming gas stations too.
I don't know why I would know this, but I'm just saying.
First off, I'm willing to bet that if you're getting an Olympic urine test, they're probably gonna get a hair sample. So unless you're gonna, I mean, the fake pee thing, I'm saying they got like the top doctors that you're gonna have.
Hey, is that even her hair?
Okay.
True.
They're not going to start at the end of the extension. They're going to start at the anyway. But
I don't know, Clyde. I'm not sure why you're trying to make it sound reasonable. Why are you trying to have a rational discussion about his
I have no idea. I mean, I'm still on fuck the Olympics and your job, but that's just me. But the fake pee thing, I just got thrown for.
I just had no idea. I had, I'm not going to name names, but we had some people we know not too long ago. Asked a family member of mine, I'm gonna say it like that, could they get some pee? I like, what kind of life do you think we live in at this stage? Are we gonna give somebody some fake pee? B? Like, get away.
Hey, yo, man. Yo, my cousin was getting a job one time, man, and he asked his homeboy for some pee because he thought he didn't smoke no weed. So the motherfucker gave him the pee and shit, and he failed the test. He's like, yo, man, what the fuck, man? I still failed the drug test. He said, nigga, I didn't know what you wanted to do with my pee. I thought you was into some freaky shit. So he failed anyway. That's my point. So, I wouldn't trust the ear doctor or wherever the hell he tells you to go get some fake pee.
Oh, my God.
I didn't know they had fake pee, but that's just,
I know. It just sounds like it's behind the counter the way he's talking about. He just goes like,
sound like it's like
I need
shelf.
Sound like it's in a urinal or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? No time for the ear doctor. It's the ear doctor, man.
You never know.
Stick to the weather, brother. Let's stick to the weather.
Anyway, let's spin that globe, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, the remixers or the mix-a-lots, the chat room has co-signed Ear Doctor's suggestion. So apparently, anyway.
Listen.
Hey, look, I know we're going to come back to this, but just so you know, this was some of the footage that has been floating around on Twitter of the raid on Moise, and of course I noticed that it's Noticia Libre, which is an outlet coming out of the DR. I don't know exactly what that means. It's just something that I am noticing, and you hear the Spanish being spoken on the video. But anyway, so like we said, we're going to continue to follow this story and bring updates, and hopefully we'll be hearing directly from Haiti in the next hour. But I just wanted to
Was there any report of how many quote unquote assailants or assassins or whatever they may have been?
The only off the top of my head, what the only story that I started to see was coming out of Al Jazeera, and I don't recall that it mentioned the exact number. It just says that Moise was assassinated in his home. Minister Claude Joseph said, who is now the interim prime minister. A group of unidentified individuals attacked the private residence of Moise overnight and shot him dead. The first lady was also hospitalized in the attack. Moise has been ruling Haiti, the poorest country in the Americas, by decree. I don't know what is I don't know what anyway. But after legislative elections due to 2018 were delayed, Joseph said he is now in charge of the country. So that's the extent of certainly of what I know is really just this initial report and that little bit of footage.
And other reports have also said that his wife was actually also shot.
Right.
They don't know what condition she's in, so she was also actually shot too.
I mean, I'd like to know, okay, dude got hit up in his crib, right? I'm gonna just say it, in my little ghetto vernacular, right? He's at the crib, and his crib gets bum rushed, right, by a whole bunch of different cats. How many of his security cats got popped? That's what I want to know, because of the fact if you're the president of the motherfucking country, you know what I mean? I mean, because you run up on us, it's gonna be motherfucking problems. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand how.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's some ill shit.
And I don't know anything about the layout of the residence or how they had it staffed. I don't know anything about it.
Especially when you got beef like that. I mean, it's like you got beef with every fucking body. You got beef with the people in the streets. You got beef with other countries. You know what I'm saying? You got beef with the government that you've been trying to do what Trump was trying to do. So it's just like, I mean,
it talks to larger concerns. I mean, for them around what the security force was and was not doing, who knew what. Mm-hmm. Who was involved in what, but whether or not we would get those answers ever, what I mean, probably still remains unknown, because if this wasn't just some street shit, and it sounds like it probably wasn't just like the gangs broke in, it sounds like there's some sort of sophisticated operation, and like you said, they had to know the lay of the land and everything, so that means some other powers were probably involved, and we just don't know who yet.
Right, that's a wild shit. Well, we can't say we're surprised that he got mashed out. I mean, that happens. You know what I mean? Especially when you're dealing the way he did. So
I mean, honestly, one of the things that always comes to my mind when these things happen is is about the line of succession. And I'm always, I admit it, this is just part of my own personality, but I'm always like, why is somebody in such a hurry to be next? Certainly the long-term prospects don't ever seem to look good, and then even the existing in that level of controversy and stress, trying to balance what the West wants with all the different groups in your country would want. I mean, it just seems incredibly stressful. So
unless you're a cat like Mobutu.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's clearly,
well, power is like it's an intoxicating, desire. I don't think if people put a lot of emphasis on, just because that person got assassinated, I'm going to get assassinated, because they think they're the special one,
right,
who is going to be able to sort of control everything around them and avoid what the previous person either happened to them, and half the time something that they may be involved in themselves. And Kalonji is right. There's some folks who were involved in assassinations who had long lives. We just got finished talking about Patrice Lumumba like last week, right? His assassin, or somebody who had a significant prominent role in his assassination, he led the country for decades afterwards, right? So it's not, for them, it's not only always a sure thing that just because the previous person didn't have the security apparatus or wherewithal, whatever we want to say, or just had stronger powers who are willing to take it out, doesn't mean that they think the same thing is going to happen to them.
Hey man, every Negro I ever met was smarter than every other Negro he ever knew. You know what I'm saying? It's just the reality of things. You know what I mean? Everybody's the smartest person, you know, that they know in their head. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking to the smartest people in the room, which is what I think at one point they were calling the Wall Street folks behind the last George Bush, if I'm not mistaken. But the folks who seem to be behind everybody, including our dear brother Killer Mike's Greenwood Bank initiative, JP Morgan, have yet again been further connected to another Ponzi scheme. This time again, popping up Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. And again, I want to again shout out this website, Wall Street on Parade. I think it's just a great stripped down almost daily source for following these kinds of stories. But it's fascinating. And just a little bit from the story here, after reading the documents released by the Justice Department in January 2014 in connection with JP Morgan Chase's settlement over its role in the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, the Los Angeles Times asked this question: Bernie Madoff, was he part of the JP Morgan ring, or was JP Morgan part of his ring? Given the facts of the case, the question was more than fair. And as they go through and talk about, as we've covered a little bit here, JP Morgan, even just under the time of Jamie Dimon, remember our dear white savior in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, who took a knee last year in front of his vaults, which is still my favorite. Literally in front of his vaults. Didn't open them, but he just stood. He took a knee.
He should have took a knee in front of me in front of his vaults. You know what I'm saying? Motherfucker.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to. Anyway. But sure, but anyway, but in January 2014, JP Morgan paid $2.6 billion in fines and restitution, signed a deferred prosecution agreement with the Justice Department, and walked away from further criminal charges over its 22-year involvement with Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. And anyway, so that's basically it. There's more in the detail in that they go through in terms of this history of JP Morgan and Madoff. I would only want us to bring up one, that this is one of the biggest banks in the world that is not only been connected to Madoff, but any number of money laundering, international drug trafficking,
slavery.
There we go. Of course, I mean, they've been connected to all kinds of stuff, and yet, continue operating largely untouched, largely because they continue to finance almost every major political, party and candidate. And then lastly, I would just want to say, if anyone hasn't yet, please do find and watch the documentary Chasing Madoff, because they really go into what went on beyond the headlines, and including talking about the web that Madoff was himself connected to. So I think the question in this story here is correct. Whose web was caught up in who? And Madoff was not the end all be all. He was running things for European royalty, for drug operations, for all kinds of so-called legal or extra legal entities in this world, and of course JP Morgan. So the question would be, I think, more appropriate, what ring was he a part of, as opposed to who was a part of his ring. And I think this is just another example, a clue that it was much bigger than Madoff. So
think Madoff.
And another reason why he was able to do what he was doing for so long.
Yeah, he's down in hell doing Ponzi schemes now. You know what I'm saying? Trying to figure out who's gonna be at the top, who's gonna be at the bottom. But yeah,
maybe. And you know, speaking of which, one of his, you know, one of, you know, their you know, buddies, and those sponsored, similarly sponsored, Biden. And again, shout out to everybody who told us all last year, including old boy Michael, what was his name? He was always on Roland Martin, Michael something, but he the columnist out of Philly, what's his name? But he called people, he said, if you don't support Biden, you're a traitor, is what he said. That was his word.
You talking about homeboy hip hop dude from Temple?
No. Not Mark Lamont Hill.
No, not Mark Lamont Hill.
No, who you talking about?
What's the boy name, man?
But it's Michael something, and does journalism out of Philly.
Okay.
And is often a contributor to Roland Martin, is where, because I happened to watch it that day where he said, if you don't vote for Biden, you're a traitor. And then all these people were telling us we would be able to push Biden left and all of this stuff. And, you know, he has already betrayed another campaign pledge, as reported here in Covert Action Magazine. It admits that the U.S. will continue to bomb Afghanistan. On July 2nd, fleeing questions from reporters about U.S. plans in Afghanistan, President Joe Biden sought refuge behind the 4th of July Independence Day holiday. Yet he obliquely acknowledged that the U.S. will use some level of over-the-horizon air attacks to prevent the Taliban from taking power, attacks that will include drones and manned aircraft, possibly even B-52s. Are you worried that the Afghan government might fall? I mean, we are hearing about how the Taliban is taking more and more districts, and the president says, look, we were in that war for 20 years, and I think I met with the Afghan government here in the White House in the Oval. I think they have the capacity to be able to sustain the government. They are going to have to be down the road, more negotiations, I suspect. But I am concerned that they deal with the internal issues that they have to be able to generate the kind of support they need nationwide to maintain the government. Anyway, it's just
comedy on its face. I mean,
yeah.
I just want to jump quickly. The fact that he says we've been in this war for 20 years, it's like you started the war.
Right.
United States invaded the country, you know. So it wasn't like it was some civil war that was already going on that you decided to get involved in. Like you started the war. That's right. You destroyed the country. You kicked out the Taliban. But the Taliban, whether people again like them or don't, are an indigenous force within that country, and so of course they're going to have support from various sectors in that country. Of course they're going to continue to fight because they're there forever. Right? They're not leaving their country. They're not there like for a moment's sake or based on some propaganda scheme. So they're going to be there. And of course, the government is going to fall because that government has no real support except for the Western powers that put it in. And so, again, whether or not people think they like some of the policies and all that kind of stuff, it's not an indigenous force. Right. And so the only way anything is going to change in Afghanistan to be anything that people want to see outside of the Western world is that if it happens internally. And so that's a struggle for Afghanistan. You know, that's not a struggle that the United States is going to be able to impose. So and of course he's going to bomb. That's what they do. And they'll go back and invade again. But it's obvious that within the next 6 months to a year, that Afghan government is going to fall and fall hard, and that the Taliban will be back. And then the U.S.'s role, as it sees it, will be to continually try to keep that government weak. And so, i.e., even though it's different politics than Iran, that means that they're going to continue to bomb. They're going to continue to find ways to destruct its economy. All that those conversations and talks around working for the people of Afghanistan, the sanctions that are going to be imposed, all of that is going to be geared towards the larger population who's going to suffer because of the U.S. righteous call for human rights in Afghanistan.
It's crazy because it sounds like one big ass bad soap opera. I'm talking about how the U.S. goes around the world installing managers to manage uh, colonialism and capitalism and imperialism and shit. And it's just like it's a non-stop program. But this shit is definitely falling. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. The more the words of the little silly looking white dude that you know, Channel 13. Mr.
Oh
Rogers.
man, don't hate on don't hate on
Just because he's your Navy buddy, don't start that shit.
Mr.
I know. Mr. Rogers get props. I got tired of changing his fucking sweater every 5 minutes. But anyway,
he spawned Mr. Robinson's neighborhood too. Shout out to Eddie Murphy's legendary joint. You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
but on the real, man, this is like, I mean, this is insanity at its finest. And
yeah,
you know, I mean, like you said, I mean, these motherfuckers that was pushing the whole Biden button, man, I'm just like, you know, where are they now?
But check it out, because this I love these phrases, the over the horizon capacity that we have added, and then come out to your point again. He comes back to, you know, but the Afghans are going to have to be able to do it themselves with the air force they have, which we're helping them maintain. And then of course, when the reporter tries to come back, Biden says, "I'm not going to answer any more quick questions on Afghanistan." And then the questioner says, I don't know, guy, woman, are you concerned? And the president says, look, it's the 4th of July. Like we can't. But then they explain here, when the president refers to the over the horizon capacity that we can be value added, he is referring to a plan that appears might cost $10 billion to fly drones and manned attack aircraft from bases as far away as Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait, to assist the current Afghan central government in defending itself against the Taliban. So again, 10 billion is half of what they say it would cost to end all the houselessness in this country. And I'm sure many other, you know, dollars could be spent in different ways, other than propping up these military defense contracts, to develop and fly more drones and all this other kind of, and help maintain other people's air forces, et cetera, and so forth. Anyway, so but I just like these little names that they come up with to over the horizon, and you know, and you know,
and those would be names of operations in the next few years too. The over the horizon.
That's right.
That's right. I mean? So they slowly plant their little seeds and shit into your minds, and you're like, oh, that sounds familiar. Over the horizon. You know what I'm saying? That'll replace the war on terrorism and the war on this and the war on that. You know what I mean? But,
well, part of the propaganda I love the most is when they say they have the troops saying this stuff over and over. I went over to that country to secure democratic rights that I didn't have over here. It's like, you didn't go secure nobody's democratic rights.
Having been one myself, there is nothing more uninformed than a teenager going over to fight a war for somebody. Nobody knows less about what the hell is going on than the people who are pulling the triggers and fronting in the front line and dropping the bombs. They don't know what the hell they're doing or why they're there. Have no idea. And in fact, don't even necessarily know what the mission is that they're on. Like, I always remember we were not allowed to see the pamphlets that we were helping drop on the former Yugoslavia. Why? Even if I could read the language, what is it? What are the messages that I'm not allowed to, like, what, but I was helping participate in that I mean, it's so like, whenever they put a camera in front of these people, it's like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, you don't know why you're there. You know, just shush. Get your little camera moment and shush.
Sound like some of these motherfuckers in the movement. They be on the internet talking that yak bullshit. Niggas study. Shut the fuck up. Stop telling us what the fuck's going on out here. You know what I mean?
That's interesting that you would say that, because even as we've been somewhat critical of elements of this movement, I don't know if you all saw this. And shout out to April Gogans. We know that she's not part of the madness at the leadership of Black Lives Matter and her crew, but whatever folks might think of Black Lives Matter, apparently Facebook don't think much of them, and has shut down Black Lives Matter DC's pages, disabling and blocking them randomly without explanation. So, anyway. There's much I think that could be said. I just saw this story, thought that I would share it. I think it's yet another reminder what media are here to do and what forms of communication are and are not sanctioned, and whatever, you know, whether we all agree or not with whatever certain politics of certain groups or people. The point is, we're all basically operating on borrowed time and can be shut down at the whim of one or another elite corporation without explanation, and often just by algorithm. We may not even know that a human was even involved in this. Anyway, I don't know if either of you saw this or had any thoughts about that or related issues, but
no, you know, free hood communist. I'll say that. But the idea is, yeah, I think you're totally right. Is you know, we use these as if we use these the social media stuff for entertainment purposes, to talk trash about each other, to rip on the latest celebrity. You can get 5 million followers and never have to worry about a thing. But the moment you begin to sort of go down the whole of politics, and again, like you said, like you never know what's going to offend, because for them it's about what's in vogue. And if they get too much right-wing pressure, then they will be like, you know what, we're going to have to clean up some of this left-wing stuff, and we're going to take some of this stuff off the air. So it's always precarious, and you know, it's hard to say, but part of movement building will be building infrastructure that figures out alternative ways to communicate, because these platforms, including the one we're on in terms of YouTube, are not here to serve our larger purpose. They're here to make their quick dollars. They'll tolerate us, but when it's time not to tolerate us anymore, we're gone. Like, we're gone. So
that said, hit the subscribe button so we can see Kamal do his topless TikTok.
Yeah, so y'all can see that.
Right.
Get your pronouns right. Aside from that,
he said, who's we?
I'm good, my G. So, but yeah, back to what you all were saying, man. That's one part of the hazards of hashtag movements. You know what I'm saying? You have to have ground representation. You got to be out in the streets. You got to take this shit old school. You got to go door to door. You got to take your ass in these bars and all kinds of shit. And that's what a lot of folks like the Black Panther Party was doing, like Bunchy Carter. You know what I mean? You have the discos, you have the parties, and then in the middle of that shit, stop the music and drop some political education. You know what I'm saying? You have to have creative resistance. We had Jessica Care Moore on yesterday. One of the things that we would do with our political prisoner campaigns is we do a thing called Poets for Political Prisoners. So we get some of the dopest poets and mix them with some of the dopest revolutionaries, and in between sets, as they're rocking, as they're doing their thing, we got brothers and sisters that come in, dropping that revolutionary and instilling that revolutionary fervor. That's what's important. All this shit on the internet, that shit sound good in theory. But when it gets down to it, when the shit shut down, you still got to have your ass in the streets. So that's what's important. So definitely, I don't feel sorry for the hashtag movements. You know what I mean?
Well,
some of y'all ain't on shit.
Maybe not the hashtag. I do feel sorry, especially after we participated in hosting some of these discussions. I do feel a little bit sorry for some of the people working within those entities.
The sincere forces, right?
Yeah. But speaking of sincere and insincere, I thought as we start to wrap up the news this morning, and we've dealt with some heaviness. We're going to come back to some heaviness. But I thought we could take a quick 2 minutes to give a shout out to. I'd like to show a 2-minute clip that does a number of things for me. One, it's a shout out to all of us raising brilliant and talented daughters who can become spokespeople in their own right. And then to me, it's also a perfect 2-minute summary video on the history of, maybe one could even say, white women in the United States, but certainly white feminism in the United States. So if we could, let's just take a quick peek at this little news item here, and you know.
ESPN has announced that Rachel Nichols will not be doing the NBA Finals this year. ESPN stated, "We believe this is best decision for all concerned in order to keep the focus on the NBA Finals. Rachel will continue to host the jump." This comes after the huge backlash she has received for saying Maria Taylor would take her place hosting the NBA Finals due to diversity. Rachel was very frustrated during the phone call, and the aftermath caused a strained relationship between herself and Maria Taylor. The network did not want to take away the focus from the NBA Finals, so they reacted quickly. What will be interesting to watch is if they renew Maria Taylor's contract. Many speculate she wants around $8 million on her new contract.
Oof.
Jalen Rose even blurted out during a live telecast, ESPN needs to give Maria a raise. Speaking of Jalen Rose, his daughter took an opportunity to ether Rachel Nichols.
Because let's quickly talk about Miss Rachel Nichols. Maria Taylor knows what a generational talent she is in the broadcasting world, so I don't even got to go there and hype her up. Let's talk about the fact that she actually played basketball. And if you want to go there, let's go there. Let's talk about how you're related to Diane Sawyer, arguably the queen of ABC. Nah. You got your job as one of the faces of ESPN because you're so entertaining and talented and so good at it, right? You are a woman in the sports world, and you sat there and you laughed about the Me Too movement, about your fellow women complaining about being sexually assaulted at work. You think that's funny? What really got me is you're tired of the Black Lives Matter movement because you weren't tired about posting about it or making your stupid little storybook monologues about it. Maybe instead of crying and calling Maria a diversity token, you can direct that energy to the people who think there can only be one woman on that stage. And if we're being real, Rachel Nichols is a subpar reporter. Subpar, boring, not great. I'm sorry your white privilege didn't work this time. Maybe next time.
There's so many levels of that little clip. Anyway,
that is hilarious.
Okay, guess.
I mean, every field has its battles, man, and that's in some ways, I think she laid out perfectly the commentary. Like you have somebody who they're okay with hires that are not based on merit as long as they're the ones getting hired. You know what I mean? So, and it's the other weird thing for me was that they each had like the black one had the long extension here and the white one had the long extension here. So when are we going to break through with these bad looks too? Like this is what female reporters have to look like in order to get on the air, because it looks kind of like it's like it's a sandwich of the same thing. So, but shout out to Jalen Rose's daughter. How she gets so street, I don't know, because I could have sworn that she grew up with some money, but she was doing that thing. She was doing that thing. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, hey, look, the streets extend even to the exurbs and the suburbs, at least aesthetically. Anyway, like I said, there's so many levels to that little clip. There's the idea again that Rachel Nichols can acknowledge in that clip, if people heard it, that she said, "Look, I've even struggled as a woman in this, but don't you dare throw this diversity my way." I mean, it's so stereotypical of white liberal women feminists who would want to wave the flag of femininity and womanhood until it involves black womanhood or brown womanhood. Then all of a sudden it's hold up now. I married into the Nichols family, which they didn't even talk about that in that clip. The whole Nichols family, in Hollywood and all that, they got big pull and all that. So I did all of that, sister girl. Why? Don't come around here with anyway.
You gotta love these folks, man. It's just their arrogance and ignorance is just amazing, man.
But can I get one more? Speaking of arrogance and ignorance, can I get one more before we wrap real quick? Because Sister Tanda Seasway on Instagram. Oh man, this right here was beautiful. Did you all see this joint?
Yeah, so my man Terhad posted it.
Oh, yes, I can't get the sound on.
Oh, come on, man, you got to, man. Rewind.
There we go. Because
rewind it.
I'm gonna replay it. Hold on.
Yeah. Rewind select.
Yeah. Hold on, wait. Oh.
Shit, that's me talking shit. 3602 Gramercy Way. That's where I live. Come fucking see me.
Try Jesus, not me.
The song is what gets me though. I throw hands.
Shout out to Toby, baby.
Try Jesus. Please
Bubba gave his address.
Because I'm fine.
Someone wants to explain the background.
So there's an extended clip. There are extended clips. This is a white dude who has apparently a black.
Niggers out of here and you can't do shit. That's me talking shit. 3602 Gramercy Way.
He's saying, get these monkey niggers out of here. He's going up to some black neighbor talking about how black people are creating all the gun violence and all this other stuff. And he put his address out, and a few minutes later, everybody showed up.
Oh,
and he had to get escorted out to the car.
hey.
People throwing beer and drinks at him and stuff. The cops.
He ain't that loud right now either, man. With that, hey man, I respect the motherfucker going. It's gonna be gangster all the way. If he'd have just still been out there like, yeah, fuck with me, and they had to carry him out, that's one thing. But dude,
he
like,
would have got fucked up. I think even at some point, gangster, when gangster turned stupid, it's like hundreds of people. He would have got.
I mean, he was already stupid. You know, what I'm saying? Putting his address
so he just out of the blue, he was mad. He shouted out, and people just showed up in the.
If you find the extended video, there's one where he's standing in front of a black neighbor, and the neighbor's just kind of like, wow, like, you know, I'm like, I didn't have any, you know, and he's yelling at him like, you monkeys moving here. And there's a cop standing there too. And he's like, get these monkeys and these niggas out of here. And he's, you know, the brother at the door, he's like, you know, something about somebody I know got shot or their car shot out. And the brother's like, I didn't even need to do it. I don't even know your number. Like, what was that to do with me?
Trying to walk my house.
And then all of a sudden he's over there like, I'm gonna get you, and here's my address and come see me. You saw him out there, come see me. I was like, oh my God.
He's like the white King Kong. He wasn't playing, boy.
And they came and saw him.
Oh, damn. Well, I like that. I do like that. I
love it. And the song though, Try Jesus.
Shout out to Toby on that, man. They killing the game right now. But definitely, yeah, he got, man. I mean, these cats, boy. I mean, dude put his whole address out.
He did. He was like,
wow.
16 Gramercy ship, let's come see him.
Yeah, Red House, nigga.
With the green shutters, motherfucker.
Yeah, come see me. This is what I do. You know what I'm saying? They can't see me like, oh God, dear Lord.
And then he was getting sheepishly walked out with his police escort.
Oh, punk ass.
Oh my God.
Got me breaking my chair and everything.
That was hilarious.
Shout out to all the white folks out there who, you know, who tough in the daytime, bold enough to put the address on the internet. You know what I mean? You know, keep up the good work, man.
That's what happens when you start drinking in the morning, man. By lunchtime, you put your address on Instagram talking about come see me.
That's why if you gonna drink early in the morning, if you gonna drink early in the morning, you better get some Uncle Nears and put in your tea, because that shit'll keep us cool. But if you gonna go out there like that, man, get your big pushback. Tell you what it is, man. We need a sponsorship from you.
I'm trying to tell you, man, we do.
That's the only UN we support.
the contradiction of the century. BPM liquor sponsorship.
That's right, baby.
Early in the morning when you need a drink.
That's right. You got
to turn to that, which will make you do this.
Right.
Listen.
Bam.
Especially if you're checking out the RemiX morning show, we got to get something.
Boom back breakfast.
Yeah. Speaking of trying Jesus, you know what I'm saying?
He throws hands on the turntables though.
He might fight. Ear doctor in the building, man. What you at? Big Baby G.
Hey, yo, we got a new sponsor.
Who that? Cisco?
You
I told y'all I'm about to start revoking y'all ghetto passes, man. Y'all gotta come down to the hood sometimes and find out about these things, man.
Hood remedies. That's the new segment on BPM. Hood remedies with the ear doctor.
Once again, these pronouns talking about y'all. What's up, man?
No doubt. Hey, yo, it's time for let me give y'all a sample. So
nice.
Get y'all thinking caps on and let me know what y'all know about this music. Let's get it.
And I'm gonna be in that chat. Remix.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Welcome out, everybody. This is Black Power Media. This is the RemiX Morning Show, and I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. And please make sure y'all like, make sure y'all subscribe, make sure y'all join this channel so we can get some more info on how we can build it up. And help us build it up by going to patreon.com, dropping some change with Black Power Media so we can take this up and forward. You know what I mean? So right now it's time to get into our game we like to do. It's called Let Me Give You a Sample. So what I'm going to do, as I say all the time when we're talking about samples, it could be either the beat, it could be either the vocals, it could either be a chop or a piece of a song. So today we're going to start with the new version, and then I'm going to ask y'all who gave us the original version. So we're going to do it like this. Let's get it and started off with this song right here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing tonight? I'd like to welcome to the stage the lyrically acclaimed. I like this young man because when he
Sky's the limit,
with the phrase
Notorious B.I.G.
the classic
with 112.
So everybody in the house,
This was off the Life After Death album.
round of applause for the
Came out in 1996.
The Notorious B.I.G. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for him, y'all. I've never been as broke as me. I like that. When I was young, I had 2 pair of leaves. Besides that, the pinstripes and the gray. The one I wore on Mondays and Wednesdays. My flirt, I'm sewing tigers on my shirt and alligators. You want to see the inside? I see you later.
All right. Do we have anybody that knows who actually came out with the original song to this in the chat room? I see nobody right now. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you who did the original version. Y'all ready for this? All right, here we go. Come on. Oh. We need answers, not questions, Dev.
How long have you been away? Oh, how long? I can't find the words to say.
All right. So, as we can see right there, we got Bobby Cadwell. Bobby Cadwell, who came out with the song called My Flame in 1978. My Flame. That's right. He gets an invite to the barbecue, y'all. He gets an invite to the barbecue. So let's take it back to the morning show right here, right now. Let's go.
My flame. Some things will never change. I still hold your vision in my mind.
All right.
Yeah, Bobby Caldwell is definitely one of them slept on cats. You know what I'm saying? Bobby Caldwell, and as someone mentioned in the chat, D-Train on the hook. D-Train's another slept on artist and whatnot. Usually, I don't know, did folks hear about D-Train outside of the tri-state area? Because I know D-Train got heavy play on BLS.
Keep on. That was the joint. You better have heard about that.
That had to be national.
I don't remember.
I don't know, because a lot of
I don't know. I don't remember it.
I think it was probably tri-state, just like Too Hype. Remember In Touch? Ooh,
yeah. It might have been.
Yeah, I think it was.
We're gonna ask. When DeHondo gets here in the next, we're gonna ask him about that. If it escaped the area, if it made it down this way, he would know.
But what about this?
The D-Train, baby.
Come on.
Yeah, he probably know it. I don't know that. I'm just saying. I'm just saying it could be me. I don't know everything.
We gotta put you on. I'll catch y'all next break though.
Thanks, Ear Doctor. Appreciate you.
Peace,
Love
man.
those sample segments. We're gonna ask DeHondo when he gets. He's waiting. We're gonna ask him. I saw him grooving there. He might know all that, and talk about people who would know music in the industry and might be able to even play it. Probably could play it while we're sitting here. Anyway, we'll ask him about that
stuff, but you don't know D-Train. I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Anyway,
my bad.
Anyway, look,
I'm not salty.
Where you from, Kamal? Where the brother from? See, Kamal,
DC area.
You talking about DeHondo?
No, are you Jared? I'm not talking about that. I'm not
talking about me.
Yeah,
Kamal be hating on anybody
DC
outside of New
originally,
York.
DMV, born and raised, Maryland.
Yeah, I'd say all that. Go Google music, but you don't know
Go Google. Wow, you're right. I do know more about Go than Bobby Caldwell.
The man said
not Caldwell. I said D-Train
and D-Train. You're right. I do. You're right.
He said Go. What did he say? Go what? Google.
He said Google. That's disrespectful.
Man.
These Brooklyn cats, man, you can't take them anywhere.
Hey, I'm definitely not going to DC with Kamal.
Yeah, stay in Atlanta. Let's get to this segment, man. Let me tighten these cats up, man. We'll be back. Let's do this here to Remix.
What's that?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show here, Black Power Media. I'm Jared Ball. My man DeHondo Smith is joining us. I don't have a proper bio for you, and other than to say that this here is among many other things, a father and a cousin of my man Parrish, who I rocked with in the legendary Western Maryland funk group from 1997 to 1999, Mama's Biscuits. And as an ancillary benefit, I got to meet and even jam once or twice with my man DeHondo here, who is an amazing musician, has toured with a lot of performed with a lot of famous people, with a lot of great musicians, not so famous, can beast out on any number of instruments. DeHondo, welcome. I appreciate you joining us this morning. Good morning.
Morning, JB. How you doing?
Man, I'm as good as could be expected, man. It's always good to catch up with you. I follow you on Instagram and see all the little clips and stuff and have all these memories.
What's up there?
Let's start with a little bit about what you do as a musician, and then I do want to hear a little bit. Obviously, I'd like you to play some things if we can get a little bit today, a little taste. But I wanted to have you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what the music industry is and has been, and what it looks like from someone who has crossed paths with some famous and talented musicians, has crossed paths with some less than famous but equally, if not more so, talented musicians. What is it? I described you even as a session musician. I don't even know if that's fair and accurate, but I've always thought that session musicians were among the best in the world because they have to be able to play with any number of people and adapt and do da-da-da. But that's from your perspective, and talk a little bit about your career, if you would.
Wow. Well, I mean, I've been playing for a long time. I started in 1981. And before that, my first real instrument was guitar. First real instrument. Before that, I would be like the kid that would be at church and would sneak downstairs and there'd be an old rickety piano, and I'd start banging on the keys and stuff till somebody would pull me off it, that kind of thing. And
you were just natural with it. This wasn't like lessons, and you just picked it up and had an ear for it, a skill for it.
It was there, and there was a little bit of guidance. In 7th grade, I started guitar classes and everything like that. And there was a teacher named John Marari, and he brought out this bass. It happened to be a 1962 P bass that belonged to the school, which I found out subsequently that it disappeared. But of course, because it's worth $10,000 now. But he started playing the Barney Miller, and I was like fascinated. And I had already been playing guitar.
Hey, that was a funky bass line, man.
For real though.
The Barney Miller, the theme song, that was funky.
Yeah, I think that was played by Carol Kay. I think she was a famous, still is. She's still around. Famous session musicians. All the stuff you heard in the 60s and 70s, she played on it. Like the top of the top of the top of the studio session musicians.
Is your bass there? Is it plugged in? You should demonstrate. You should play with it. You should let people know what it sounds like. Are you there? Are you set up to do that? I don't even know if you're set up to do it, but
I mean, I could be.
I mean, you might be. He might be. I think because that was a funky bass line, and I know we just jumping around here a little bit, but that joint was funky.
Yeah, this thing's in tune though. You see, that might not be. Here we go. But it's.
That joint was hot. That joint was... Oh, so she didn't do all that. I told you.
They didn't put that in there.
They didn't put that in there. But I try to let people know you could play a little bit. But you know, I'm glad you let. By the way, where are we talking about? Were you? Was this in D.C., Maryland, Virginia? Where were you? Where were you coming up?
Maryland. Yeah,
That's
Maryland. Right. And the thing is that because it's like the Mid-Atlantic region, you have all of these different influences in proximity to that area. Mm-hmm. So of course, you know, I heard brother talking about not knowing about D Train. Yeah, I had D Train on CD and all that stuff.
Wow.
You know?
I figured you would.
You know, and of course Go-Go.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go further north, you know, up into Frederick, there's country and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's all these, you know. You know, that kind of thing. And so, and I've always been a person who's very eclectic in their tastes. So I didn't care. The only thing I would discriminate against is bad music. It was two types. It was good music. It was bad music. Music I liked, music I may not be quite into, but I still had my ear open to it. So that's the kind of thing, you know, that's where I was going, was just having, being open to listening to anything, just about anything. You know?
And then you how did you end up? Talk a little bit about how you've developed your career. You know, you've been members of bands, you've been members of other people's bands. What is and maybe talk a little bit about what that's like, this being a session musician, to the extent you've done it yourself or come across others who maybe more fully, you know, stayed in that lane.
I think the most important takeaway is how you relate to people, how you carry yourself, you know, how, you know, you're nothing if you're not your reputation, right? Mm-hmm. So going in and somebody says, well, this may not work, or this might work, you know, they may have a critique, and a constructive critique at that. You have to be open to analyze that and also be self-analytical in order to, you know, to get what the mood is, you know, like the way you may perceive things or how you may want the music may be different from what it actually needs to be. Mm. So you have to be open to that in that perspective. And then on an interpersonal level, how you deal and talk to people is very important. It can go very far and wide. You know, also, it's just kind of proper manners just to treat people like human beings anyway. You know what I mean?
I guess but you also have to, like, even in what you just showed us there, you have to be willing to suppress some of your own talent. You know, I mean, I remember I was there, and I would want to hear more about these examples, but I was there at least on one occasion where you were performing with, what's my man from Tony, not Raphael Sadiq. What's his name?
Dwayne Wiggins.
That's right. And you were supposed to you were just asked to step in and support his band, I think more or less at the last minute. But there was a moment where you let it be known how talented you were. And I remember the look on his face was like, damn, like what have I done? You know, it was almost like, so on some level, he had to be gracious enough to say, look, I'm supposed to be the headliner, but clearly this brother right here is special. And at the same time, you would have to, on more than one occasion, I'm guessing, be willing to say, I'm not going to shine as much as I know I can, because I got to make this person look good, or I have to sort of, you know, fall back and sink back in within the group. And I'm I guess, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it wouldn't be so easy for everybody to do. Like if somebody is really that good, you know.
Well, it's, to be truthful, it's a challenge, because it's like, it's funny. I put up this Instagram video, you know, like they have those memes, and I'm not as technically savvy for like creating my own meme entirely, but I had two different videos, and one is me like playing guitar, like, you know, like metal guitar, like, you know, 64th note, 32nd note triplets and all this other stuff, like. And then the other one's me just like at a rehearsal or playing somewhere, and it's just me like on the wah pedal, just going wah 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 wah, wah. You know, and one part is like what's in my head, and that's me playing fast and all this. What I'm actually doing on the gig, you know. So yeah, it's kind of like having this big giant fuel tank, right? For like a 4-cylinder engine or something like that, right? You know, you really only need this much.
It's like you putting, you know, what is it, like putting nitrous on a Datsun or something. It's like
exactly.
What do we, you know, bust the whole frame trying to, but on one level. So I do want to hear there are two sort of in a few minutes we have left, two broad questions that I still want to hear you talk more about. One, like, who have you performed with? You know, what maybe some of the names we might know, and maybe some of the others we wouldn't. But then also this bigger question of Black musicians in live instrumentation bands, given what is often, you know, promoted as popularly as strictly supposed to be, you know, turntables and you know, drum machines for popular Black artists, and specifically Black artists who pick up guitars, like the Black rock tradition, that is not always as well known as it should be, or maybe
it really
isn't
is, because that's where it starts. That's what the origin of just about all modern popular music comes from Black folks, like all of it. Like even country, there's this technique on guitar called Travis picking, and you know what it is do 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 dick. You know, I can do it on my guitar, but there's this guy named Arnold Schultz who actually invented it in Kentucky, Black man in Kentucky, and there was a legend that he was killed because the other artists or musicians were jealous, the white musicians or whatever. And it's kind of like one of those apocryphal tales that, you know, you can't really confirm or deny.
And yet I immediately believe it.
Because you know, every time, right? It's like, oh, we can't get that, you know, let him play like that, you know. But later on they called it Travis picking. But back in the South, you know, they had these thousands of Black bands that would perform like for any function, black and white. They were the ones that you recall, and they would do these different kinds of music, and they had to know everything, you know. And so that tradition goes way back. And then we can go back to like the origins of real rock guitar, you know. We could talk about oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Okay. She's the quote unquote the godmother of the guitar solo, like that stuff. You know, she started out in gospel, and then she got really popular. And then of course we could talk about Buddy Guy. We could talk about, of course, Jimi Hendrix. There wouldn't be any of the modern guitar playing without Hendrix. So just to put that out there.
Just real quick, any revisionism on how great he was? Has there been any upstarts in the last few years talking about he wasn't as good as he was? Remember, just curious if that has happened to Jimmy in any way.
To be honest, I don't think there's anybody foolish enough to do that, because everybody knows better. Because all of his contemporaries, like when he went to England from America, you know, he was struggling. Like most musicians do. He was struggling up in New York, just pawning his guitar and going back and forth. And then I forgot his name, the gentleman from the Animals. He played bass in the Animals. He says, I'm gonna get you to England. First night he went over there with Eric Clapton and all that, and went up on stage, and he whipped his, you know, I don't know if I can say that on, but you know.
Yeah, you can cuss here. We don't have a problem with that.
Just trying to be appropriate.
Yeah,
you know,
I hear you. I hear you.
No, okay, so he whooped up on his ass up on stage, and that's when they said like they killed God because Eric Clapton was supposed to be God. Eric
Clapton was God. That's right.
Yeah,
they used to write it on the walls in England. So look, we only have a couple minutes, man. Quickly, two things. Give us some of the names of people you've performed with, and then if you would just play us out on something, let folks get another taste, you know, and then they can of course check you out at DeHondo Smith on IG and you know, to hear more. But if you would, you know, give us a little something.
Man. Let's see. Ja Rule, and that was over at 2K9.
No, that's interesting.
Jill Scott, right before she got famous, and there's this event called Groove Gumbo.
Right, that's right.
And so they would have all these artists come into town, you know. And we would play for whoever. You also mentioned Dwayne Wiggins from Tony. There's some people I didn't even know who they were. Like, for real, I would just get the call, say, "Hey, man, you know what you doing tonight? Can you come up here and just learn this stuff?" And like,
and they don't try to sign you and make you permanent members of their band. I mean, I would think that has to happen.
Dwayne. So with Dwayne, after the show, he's like, "Man, you from another planet." And
Right.
I'm like, you know, whatever. And I was like, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." But he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll give you a call." But, you know, sometimes it happens where, you know, people get it, they get the number, and then sometimes they'll call or sometimes they won't. It just depends. It really just depends. But
well, I think they're nuts. Yeah. But if well, on the one hand, I would say that I could see that everybody would want you to be part of their band. And then, as we already mentioned, I could see why some would say, "Nah, he's too good. He's going to mess up my spot."
That's a dynamic that I have had to deal with before. You know, you got to pull it back, and sometimes you may not pull it back enough, you know? So, you know, what you're supposed to do is let the main artist let their light shine.
Right.
Right. That's what you're there for. Now, you know, I could be doing like, right. That's a simple groove if somebody's singing about it. But if I start going like, you know, if you start doing all that, yeah.
Then people start turning their head and start looking at the bass player. They're like, "Damn."
Yeah, or the guitar player, the keyboard player, whichever
instrument you're on. Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's just kind of learning like where you're allowed to go. And I actually verbally give an option. Like when somebody says, "Man, go for it, make it funky." I'm like, how far do you want to make it funky? You know, like, because there's certain levels to that. You know, like, yeah.
Unfortunately, we got to go, man. I just want to, you know, I thank you very much for jumping on a little bit this morning. I definitely want to have you back again and get you know, more to see more of what you can do. But if you would, man, just play us out until Sister May takes us into the next segment, and when we bring on Dr. Prosper to get back into the discussion of Haiti. But thank you very much, DeHondo, and all the remixes. Good morning, everybody. Back to the remix with DeHondo, man. Go ahead, man. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks again to DeHondo. Really appreciate him coming through and demonstrating a little bit of his genius, and is truly off the charts, man. I mean, he's
nah, he was the hotness, man. I give it to him. And he was D-Train too, you know, as a side note, you know, so he did know. He got some legitimacy in my book from that DC area.
And it's crazy that he is. I mean, when people see like he is just as nice on the guitar, on the keyboard. I mean, he's a phenomenal guy and very humble, a brilliant brother, man. Really appreciate him. But speaking of brilliance and suppressed genius,
we're going to have that's a good cue. We're going to have our next guest is Dr. Mamira Prosper, who again is actually in Haiti and is going to give us a live update on what's happening on the ground there. Obviously, as folks have heard, the president has been assassinated early last night, and whatever details or whatever's happening in the country, we're going to try to learn straight from a source of an organizer, PhD activists on the ground. So let's see if we can bring on Ms. Prosper.
Right on.
Hey, Dr. Mamira Prosper, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
good
good.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So let's jump right into it because I know sometimes the internet is not always stable. A lot is going on. I know you're involved in a lot. So as news is broken that the president has been assassinated in Haiti, the little that we know is that whatever happened, his wife was also shot. We also know that there was some Spanish language happening in the background, which is leading people to believe that maybe some outside elements or whatever outside elements may be involved. None of the security, as Kalanji brought up earlier, was injured. So people are also pointing to all these rumors of outside game. Now, I know you don't know everything that's happening, of course, because it just happened. But can you give us a quick update on what you know and what the situation is like on the ground?
All right. Well, first, thank you for having me again. And I think you've summed up a lot of the news that is at this point clear that the president is dead, and so is his wife.
She did pass.
She did pass.
I've gotten news just, of course, let's wait to confirm officially. But I received news that she had been injured, gravely injured, and then they just updated that she's died. So, of course, it's a tricky place to be in. This is a president who never really had a popular mandate to even be a president, and whose term should have ended this year, right? So it's a very complicated place to be in, right? Since he was not exactly loved by the people and being protested everywhere, particularly the last referendum that he was pushing towards the production of a new constitution that would do a number of things, which is to allow non-Haitian nationals, right, even if they're of Haitian descent, right, who have other citizenship, so in the United States or Canada, to potentially hold the highest office of the country. So, if we're talking about self-determination, this is a huge contradiction, right? That others in other places can determine what happens within the border of Haiti. But some of the things that this constitution would allow, and there actually was recently a sort of pardon that was released, saying that any prime minister or official that had ever been involved or named, right, would essentially get immunity. So from 1991 up until 2018, that any president or prime minister or high official that had any kind of issues with the audit court would be officially, all investigations would be waived, right? And this is particularly important in thinking about Laurent Lamotte, who was the prime minister under Martelly, the first president of this party after the earthquake, who's put out a book, I forgot the title of the book, where he's claiming to be the longest living prime minister and has reconstructed Haiti in 932 days, right? Who's already positioning himself for the presidency and who is really close to this particular president, right? So there's a lot of players who are vying for power who could be behind this coup. Even the communiqué, so the press release that the prime minister, who was about to be removed and replaced, that particular prime minister who said the whole thing about, there was Spanish being spoken during this attack, is someone else that folks also view as a potential person we might be able to identify as benefiting from this assassination, in addition to some members of the oligarchy who are also members of the political opposition, Reginald Boulos to name one, who just last week there was a arrest, what's the word I'm looking for here? So it happens when I'm in a different country. There was an arrest warrant, that's the word, out for him in relation to money that he had borrowed from the state and had not spent doing anything that he was supposed to have done, right? So this is one of the first or the second oligarchs that this president came after. The other one, it's connected to electricity production in the country, right? So that points to me to a faction within the oligarchy, right? And some who were aligned with them and others who were not, right? And so we know that the oligarchy essentially control the ports in Haiti, control the food that people get to consume or not. So they're certainly responsible with obviously the gun suppliers, in this case, the United States, right, for the fuckery that we're living here in Haiti, right? They control the space. So it's very hard to say who could have done it in terms of the actors within the borders of the country. And certainly, I think that it will come out that there was some international involvement for sure. For example, the referendum was reported at the beginning of June. The government of Haiti said, okay, we're reporting this, for X time. But the Biden administration had written the next day saying it's annulled, right? So it's possible too that the puppet was deciding to do his own thing, and that could have come to upset the powers that be. I think it's a very complicated picture, but what I will tell you is that if you turn on the radio right now, people are playing music. And this is something that was shocking to me as well. Even during, I had talked to Kamau about coming on to talk about, what I called the 5-day massacre in Martissan. Even during that time, the radio waves, were giving music and just commercials as if it was another day, when in reality on the ground, right, the president has been assassinated and the city's shut down. The prime minister is claiming that he has control over the territory. Bullshit, right? But he's saying it, we have everything under control. He's been on the radio since like 5 o'clock in the morning, talking about how the army is going to, bring things under control.
Dr. Prosper, I'm sorry, but when we see some of the news footage that has been floating around online, coming from Dominican Republic news sources, and when we hear, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah,
everybody stop.
Yeah, we work with Kamau. We're used to that. I'm surprised there's not 10 kids falling through the shot as we speak. But when we see news from the DR, when we hear that some of the members of the attacking force or squad were speaking Spanish, to what extent is it common in Haiti for the DR to be involved, whether as a body of news reporting, or police and militia or army or more? To what extent is that or not common?
I think, as it is funny, I think people are suspecting that the Spanish speaking is coming from Colombian forces. I think that's, again, this is all speculation, right?
Sure.
Part of it has to do with the fact that the Colombian, anti-kidnapping forces had come to do a training with the Haitian police a couple months back, right? So there are more than just sort of the Dominicans who are interested in what happens within Haiti. Obviously, they share a border. They benefit from us as a market to buy, I'll say they're cheap, pesticide-filled foods. But of course, you also have what is, I think I mentioned this before, a bomb-ass Black Dominican resistance that stands up for Haiti every time. And the Dominicans, they do have relationships militarily, especially in terms of border control with the Haitian police. The current president, Abinader, I would say was some sort of ally to Jovenel Moïse, right? They had several meetings talking about how to beef up border security. So I don't really perceive that they had a stake in it specifically. But again, Moïse holds a lot of secrets of all kinds of people who benefited from the Petro-Caribe embezzlement, right? Including some Dominican funds who had been, Dominican companies who had been given contracts to build roads that, they spent 10 years building, right? And then a new company had to come in to finish the job. And there are, already evidence that there is one Dominican senator who gave money to the campaign of the first president of this party. So the ties are certainly there, and they're certainly, I would say they're close, right? But I don't know if we can comfortably say that it was the Dominicans or
no. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Not that that we would obviously ask you to, or any of us to come to a conclusion, but I was just wondering, because when we see that, is it in other words, is it routine for Dominican news to cover events in Haiti, for instance? Is it routine that you would see Spanish speaking militia or police from either the DR or elsewhere operating in Haiti, or is this something you think is when we see these clips, is this out of the ordinary in any
No, I think
way?
that the Dominican media, according to my comrades, the radicals are, much like we complain about anywhere, right, owned by the dominant groups, right, the fascists, the white supremacists. So they have all kinds of stakes in terms of, right, reporting the news in Haiti and specific kinds of news. There was a whole debate recently about the Massacre River and whether the river belonged to Haiti or to the DR. And, activists saw that as a big sort of smokescreen, right? Like, let's fan Haitian-Dominican tensions so people can stop paying attention to the fuckery that's happening on the ground, right? Distractions. So there are tensions, but, and I think the Dominican media has every reason to want to report on, chaos in Haiti. They do participate in, right, some amount of stabilization missions, but particularly in the border. I wouldn't say that they've played the same role as the Brazilian troops or the Chilean troops, like within the 17-year occupation of Haiti, right, where they were much more evident, right, on the ground, because the folks wear their flags on their sides, right? It may be because people know that the Dominican troops on Haitian soil might be politically too charged. I mean, not that Brazilians on Haitian soil is not a charge issue, but I think they know how to play these optics, right?
Sure.
In terms of who's given what role to dominate in what way. But that Haiti is really up for grabs by multiple powers in the world in the end.
So speaking of that, now that this even before this assassination, there were a lot of rumors or talk that the United Nations might be invited back into Haiti to quell all the violence or destabilization and so forth. And I know, again, this is early. We don't know what the next steps are. But do you think that with this sort of brazen assassination that's happened, like what the powers will be, will be their next step? This is go towards now a larger call by particularly the elites to have international troops back in Haiti to quell whoever they may blame it on, who may not be the real parties, to be honest. So,
right. There have been different parties, different groups of people. Like, I don't want to use parties to confuse, what I mean, but different groups of people who are interested in a new mission in Haiti and have said as much. The groups are varied, including, right, people who are close to the government, people in the opposition, diaspora folks in the United States, right? People have already been pushing for this idea that there's too much chaos here and that we need some sort of, right, big brother intervention. And without those same people naming the reality is that Haiti doesn't produce guns. So if we have this undeclared war happening, we're actually calling the same people who created the problem to come fix it, right? The United Nations were here for 17 years, right? But during the 17 years, we have more guns on the territory than we did before. So how did they come to be here in such great numbers that the gangs can be more well armed than the Haitian police force? And somehow say that it's going to be a return of this mission that's going to fix the problem that only exists because they were here in the first place. And of course, the discourse is going to be limited to Haiti's chaos, right? We know how anti-Blackness works, right? To portray Black people as unruly and savage and just rioting and burning shit, for no reason, apparently. And, the anti-Haitianism that's specific to, right, the punishing for the first Black Republic even existing. I think that those two things make that, make it that no one's going to turn and see how the United States has played an instrumental role in this chaos. And instead, the US is going to be given the role of, right, fixing it, right? And even our good radicals will, like, jump on this and think it's a great idea, right? So, I would like to think that it's not going to happen, but it just seems like what happened today will just give that much more strength to the argument that Haiti needs, another occupation. Like, who will lead it? That will tell us also about some geopolitical shifts happening, right? That it might not be Brazil, but I don't know, maybe it'd be Colombia, right? There are ways, and I've been pushing this with Kamau and talking about how those of us in the US need to gain a broader view of how US empire moves, right? And the sub-imperialists, right, that exist in all over the world, and in particular in the Americas, who are vying for power, right? And who look for these kinds of opportunities to position themselves. So again, that it will tell us a lot, right? Who decides that they want to be at the head of some next mission. But the Haitian diasporic folks, my counterparts, who are not radicals in the US, are also fucking shit up, because they're vying for power and control as well, and they are the ones who have already asked for a UN mission in Haiti, and the transition government that would come to include those of us who don't live in the country to decide what happens. So there are a lot of parties, a lot of groups that could benefit from an occupation, and there was already a momentum shift this year against Jovenel Moise, where even those who are pro his program, right, because those who will take over power aren't going to all of a sudden become revolutionary, right, popular governments. They're going to continue the same plan for Haiti, which is to cut it up in little pieces and sell it to all the multinationals and make the Haitians into, right, laborers. That's the plan. That's the model, right? And so the new groups that come aren't going to all of a sudden be ready for, a decolonization, process and revolution here. They're just looking to get theirs. That's basically what it is, right? All these folks who are positioning themselves. So we're not, unfortunately, in a revolutionary moment, even if there are folks in the States who claim to be radicals going around saying that, the federated gangs are actually revolutionary armies of the people. That's not how the people of Haiti are living, right? This so-called revolutionary army that claims that it's fighting, right, for the masses, but yet only ever attacks the masses. So, I just wanted to drop that there, because I think that's another part of the confusion, is wanting to glorify the gangs as some sort of people's army, that I think is very dangerous, that some of our so-called radicals are, maybe they're not of African descent, but, they're radicals going around claiming that these are revolutionary people's forces. And,
So could we take that moment then to just to get from your perspective some clarity on what the revolutionary perspective, or what revolutionary perspectives are saying should happen? And then I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly, if we could, just quickly, when you said these radio stations are continuing to play music, are you suggesting this is more of the state's attempt to show calm and we're still all good, or is this in any way meant to celebrate the assassination? Like, you're not saying that, right? People aren't, or are people celebratory? I don't.
I think everybody's fucking confused,
right?
To even know, are we celebrating, or are we mourning? I mean, I don't think a lot of us are going to mourn, but I don't know that those same people will celebrate necessarily, because it just feels that much more confusing, right? And that there are many, many other players, that some of them we don't even realize, right, who are making decisions for us, right? I would say for them who live here, right? I'm here in Haiti, so I'm an us today, right? But as far as the radio, I mean, of course, most of the radio is owned by the elites and, the government. So we could say that it is an attempt to show that everything is just as it was yesterday. But I think also it's a sign of, right, just how much, I would say, death has become too normalized in this place, right? That would be my interpretation. I was just sharing with a comrade that the day that there was the massacre in one part of the town, and that, the hotel by my house was blasting music, right? It's that folks, there are different reactions, right, to what's happening and to the country being under siege. And I think that this nihilistic, like, we're going to party as things burn, is also another kind of response that folks are having. but I mean, as far as the radio, everyone's writing frustrated. Like, we're looking for the news and we can't find the news. Like, what the fuck is going on? If I didn't have WhatsApp and people were communicating unofficially, which is also terrible because that means a lot of fake news is going around as well. We're not hearing the news from the media. We didn't also hear on the news about what was happening, the massacres, right? It was very brief news on very certain specific channels. So that has been the trend, that the government or the dominant media just don't talk about what's actually happening, right? The massacre that happened last week, that folks are planning a march for this Sunday as a response, the march is, let's say, temporarily canceled, right? Because folks are like, what just happened here has just changed the game, and we need to take a beat to figure out if a march on Sunday even makes sense, right? And what I was saying is, when the thing was, when the massacre was happening, the president, who's always tweeting about anything, right, that makes his government appear like it's actually working, didn't say a word. Not a word on Matisan, with more than 10,000 people displaced and people living in a gym, like on top of each other. And we're talking about COVID, social distancing, right? Like, that's not happening. And this recent massacre that included 22 people, not a word, as if it hadn't happened, right? So it's strange, but I think what you're saying is that the idea of showing that there's calm and normalcy may be the objective.
Jared had asked about sort of the revolutionary perspective, and so I wanted to get back to that but throw in there. So the obviously there are some upcoming elections which were supposed to happen, relatively speaking, soon. And so how would you what do you think is going to happen with that, as well as, and again, you just mentioned that a demonstration that I'm going to assume was called by more left forces, quote unquote progressive forces, that's going to be postponed. But what is your assumption about regrouping by the left, and sort of what next in this sort of turmoil that's happening currently?
What a question, Kamal. What a question. I don't know today that I can fully answer that, other than to say what remains true is that there was really never really a government in Haiti, right? There were people who occupied positions in the state and who were allowed to decide for us, right? And on behalf of us. And today there's still no government. It's a great opportunity for people to potentially take to the streets and sway the direction of what could come. Unfortunately, I think there isn't necessarily an already ready group to assume control without really an armed wing, right? I think one of the things about our progressives, and I think this is true of us also in the States, I know some individuals may carry guns for self-defense, but it's not part of the nonviolent script that we have been given, right, in terms of how we do this next revolution. So the progressive wing doesn't have an official armed wing to help prop its power. The police, the armed police groups didn't take on, right, the role of being a people's army. The gangs are also potentially, some of them, I don't know which one right now I could possibly name, right, could be convinced to really actually turn into a people's program. But right now, I can't really make any definite pronouncements. I do think that what people were asking for, transition government, is going to happen. It's just not going to look like what the progressives wanted, because there's a crisis, and there are people who've taken over, right, giving directions for what the next steps are. And I think a lot of those people are actually presently in the States, including other diasporic folks like myself, and that they may be able to take control of what the transition looks like, particularly if there's an intervention. It's going to be taken away out of the hands of the progressives here in Haiti. And I think it's because we don't have a people's army for real that could back up, the nonviolent stuff that we do. So
Just quickly, forgive me if I missed any of this, but what the daily, like so far at least, the days operate, the business of the day, is it are shops open, is grocery stores open to the right now, like are things
No.
So everything is shut. The country's shut down.
Well,
they're just playing music on the radio with no news, but everything else is shut down. Right.
The capital.
Oh, capital. Okay.
Yeah. The other cities, people are going about their regular business, and it's relatively true also in terms of gang activity. Most of it is concentrated around Port-au-Prince, so coming in and out. That's where you'll find most of the gangs. I think at some point they had said there were 117 gangs, 95 of which are in Port-au-Prince area alone. So this Port-au-Prince is like a specific reality. That's also where the White House is, right? And where all the state agencies are and where the president lives. So that's where the real, clashes take place. It doesn't mean there's not resistance other places. But this is a particular, political. I've been speaking English. I've been speaking Creole so long. I'm like, where's all my English at? Like, I'm like, the word is here, right? But it's a specific political place, right? Being that all the symbols of power are here. That's very different than if you protest in Jérémy, Jacmel. Gonaïves, I think, has a little bit more of a symbolic importance, being the city of independence. But the other places, when the protests happen, it's important, obviously, right? And it shows that there's dissent everywhere. And I spent some time earlier in June going around the country, particularly the north. There's nowhere you went where people weren't saying down with Jovenel Moïse. It was clear that this is somebody no one wants, and he's no one's president, right? So the loss of him is also, nobody wanted him around anyway, right? It's just, I think what makes people skittish is that we don't know what happened.
Right.
And it points further to the fact that, I always say this, all the time when we're talking about Haiti sovereign, it's like, Haiti sovereign where? Like, what you talking about? Like, right? And maybe this makes it even more obvious. This is the first president to be killed in power since early 20th century Haiti. Mm-hmm. And that happened right before the US was gonna occupy Haiti. Right? So this is even Aristide, who was so loathed, like he didn't get killed. Like he got to leave, right? Like relatively unscathed. So this is pretty big for us, even if it's a president nobody likes, right? And the fact that it could be done, either it's an inside job or an outside one, but speaks to the fact that, who's really controlling the space, right? It's not the people who are living inside of its borders.
Well, Dr. Prosper, just for my 2 cents, thank you very much for jumping on quickly this morning.
Yes.
And
I told him, I was like, it's too soon. Like everybody wants comments, and it's like we're still trying to figure out what the fuck happened.
Well, I mean, we're happy to have you back as many times.
Yes. And I was supposed to come on and talk about the march, and boom.
In fact, when I first asked you this morning, my own ignorance, I had not even read the news, to be honest, about the assassination. So I was actually thinking, for the rally, since we were just talking about covering it live on BPM over the weekend. And then a few seconds later, it just popped up that he was assassinated. And I know we want to let you go, and we're gonna move on soon. And again, I know we've alluded to the fact that some of this is speculation. We don't have a lot of answers. But a couple of quick things, so we know that this president this was not well liked. We understand that this president, but also had allies, and still it seemed like was an ally with the U.S. government. But from the outside, and maybe I'm going to speculate, not ask you, and you can comment on my speculation as I go down this road. It seems like that he may have outlived his usefulness in terms of his relationship with the United States. I don't necessarily buy that this type of assassination can happen without a wink and or a nod from certain forces that he is allied with, particularly the way the assassination took place, which was in his residence. which means getting by guards and security, and coming in at such an hour where he would have been in bed, which also means knowing a certain layout in order to get to him. So it seems, it almost seems like, again, to speculate, that there are larger forces at play, even if we don't know what those forces are, because it seems too well planned an assassination to suggest that it was just done by quote unquote unruly gangs or simply rival factions without. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now, I don't even think people are speculating that the gangs had anything to do with it, right? Even with the recent federation turning against him and saying, you know, like last month they were like, yes, Jovenel's got to stay, the referendum's got to pass, the Constitution has to pass. A month later, they're talking about we're revolutionaries and we're anti, Jovenel and the oligarchy. You know, we're gonna attack the oligarchy. They didn't attack no oligarchy, but Jovenel, by issuing this warrant against what a member of the opposition, but also a member of the bourgeoisie, that's also a big move, right? So I think there are many people who were upset at him, and that he also could reveal all the folks who are tied, I think, internationally with the Petro-Caribe scandal. It's not just state officials of Haiti. There are several international companies who essentially ran away with the money and didn't do the work they were supposed to do. And I think that he comes to be able to reveal all of that. There's the journalist who was assassinated last week. Some people speculate that she had information that was too sensitive, that she was, they were going to take her out, so she doesn't have a chance to spill it. So that could also be part of it, that he stopped being useful, or he became more threatening to those whose dirty secrets he could reveal. And I agree with you, it has to be an inside job. He has security, the best trained people, in the country to protect his house. And apparently they were all tied up. And, most of them didn't die, right? I think someone was injured, but they got all tied up and they all made it. But the president and his wife are dead. So, and the prime minister, who was about to get booted, got on the radio like 2 hours later talking about everything's under control and putting out communiques saying, oh, there were Spanish-speaking people who were here. That seems convenient, So there's a lot of players who could benefit from this. But one thing is true, there hasn't been a sitting president, though he's de facto and never had a popular mandate, but there's never been a sitting president to be assassinated like this for 110 years in this country. So this is pretty significant.
Wow.
You mentioned that a reporter was killed last week, and I don't think, again, outside of Haiti, people have heard about that killing. Can you just briefly again touch on that killing and what it is that people were, what some of the ideas are around what she may or may not be revealing that led to the assassination?
Well, in general, there were 2 journalists who were murdered, and it was, again, right in front of the home of the female journalist. She's, journalists, I guess, are supposed to be impartial, but, that's not true, right? They report the news in a particular perspective. And she, in particular, had been very vocal on the radio and on television, denouncing this current party in power. Right. So, she had already received death threats. They had already made attempts on her life. So this is not new, but they were succeeded this time. I mean, what kind of information particularly, I'm not sure, other than she's an extremely visible figure. Right. And so the march people were actually planning, we're going to denounce the general violence in the country, but lift up this particular person. And I think some of the reasons why she's being lifted up is because she's a journalist, she's been pretty vocal, she's pretty visible, but she's also a member of the middle class, right? And folks, if you're used to people in La Saline disappearing off the face of the map, and 70 people disappearing and they're nameless because they live in those places considered, lesser than, I think the fact that this is a middle-class person, right, who has a professional status that could be taken out by what we perceive as, right, a government-backed situation, it really tells you, right, that the dictatorship is now fully touching everyone, right? It's not a specific class of people who are targeted because they're known to be more militant, right? And it's not a specific group of people who are under siege by the gangs, right? But now this is true of all the folks who are resisting, who may occupy, more positions, of privilege. I think that's part of why that was a particular blow for folks. And because she is part of a lot of different organizations as well that are militant, that have been putting out statements and denouncing. So I think that that's part of why she's been lifted, right? I think some folks are like, why is she being lifted? And like 70 people died in La Saline and we didn't know one of their names. And I think that critique is absolutely true. But I think it's also because she is somebody who, as an individual, was very visible and known, that this feels like a much more organized, targeted assassination. Though the chief of police, who was personally named by now the president who's been assassinated, he claimed that this murder was done by the armed police group. And this is after, no investigation was done. Even the human rights groups were like, that's kind of irresponsible for you just to say you think that's who did it without an investigation. But that's because they're trying to sully, right, the name of this armed police group, right, to sort of put them together in the same lot as the gangs. And all that does is create more confusion for the population, right? You don't know who's killing who anymore, right? And it becomes harder for you to point that the state has anything to do with it or the oligarchy, because it seems like people are coming at you from all directions, right? I think this is what today shows too, more confusion. So that we can't identify who's really behind, right, the demise of Haiti, though we suspect we already know.
Yeah. So there's in our chat, I think one sort of wrap up question potentially. Folks are saying what it is that, or asking the question in sort of what should outside supporters of Haitians should do, Haiti on the ground, particularly by left forces. Obviously, people are saying make sure that we don't call for any UN/US intervention. What in your opinion is the role right now of the larger left, Black activists, other organizers, other folks who are radicals during this time to help support the people on the ground and to help support, even if we don't have a people's army, the people's movement in Haiti during a time like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I definitely think sometimes when, these events happen, we sort of turn to it and how do we, bring an immediate solution? And I want to push us to keep thinking about the longer term, right? Even the comment about the radios that are controlled by the oligarchy, by the government, right? Who choose to play or not play the news for a variety of strategic reasons to control the information. One of the things the leftists in general are realizing is important, not only because we know the results that it gave to push out the Duvalier dictatorship, and the response that came after was to recuperate all the radio stations, right? And even I think I shared this with you, Kamau, even in the struggles that are happening up north around this free trade zone, one of the first things that this oligarch did was to control all the radio stations. So only one kind of message is coming through. So I think if there's something long term, not just let's respond to this crisis and write statements, which are also very important, right? To say we don't want more occupation, that doesn't fix anything. It brought us here. Certainly, we want people to be able to hold that line. But at the same time, I think the longer term is how do we build the alternative here in this place, so that when there is an opportunity like this, right, the progressives, the radicals are ready, because the power, the base has been built. And I think the radio and putting in place an alternative radio station in this country that would have a host of shows like the ones we have on BPM would be something useful for the movement in the long run. And I say this not because I don't think it's important to do the online stuff. It's just that with lack of electricity and non-reliable data, we have to go to, sort of the analog stuff, right? The actual radio that can then produce a link that you could still share, right, on social media. But that's my plug, like, let's not let the current thing make us not remember that there's a longer struggle, and that's the one that we have to help build, and not simply like putting out little fires, which are also important. I don't know if that's clear what I'm hinting at.
It's very clear to me, and I was in fact going to thank you for providing BPM with its initial statement on the assassination of Moise. I think this interview is a good initial statement for us, and we certainly look forward to helping support your work and others who want to keep us appropriately focused. So, thanks.
And as
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and as you go out, can you name the coalition that you've been working with? If there's a website for people to go to find out more information about the coalition and so forth, and then we'll let you go.
Yes, so there's the Coalition Community Movement Builders is a founding member of, participant. We actually have someone after I came on the show and was like, I need help on the website, who's helping us get it up and sexy for all of our millennials and Gen Zs who need to see that, to know that their work is really being done.
It's the only real evidence, clearly.
It's the only real evidence. So it's levecampé.org. And, we're always looking for more folks to plug in. It is an international coalition, and part of that, it makes the work heavy because we move in 3 languages, but part of it is to decenter, right, the U.S. and to understand that empire led by the U.S., right, includes other players that we need to take seriously, and therefore organizing these territories as well. And then, frankly, those of us who claim to be anti-imperialists, anti-capitalists, like, we're not going to win this struggle by talking to just ourselves and by organizing with just ourselves in the U.S. I know that's already a big thing to try to do, but right, that the fight is ultimately international, and that we have to be in those spaces as well, right? Having multiple conversations and organizing multiply. So the coalition has insisted to stay international. And I think I've mentioned this before, we have learned in doing that the Dominicans are ready to fight and to fight to defend Haiti, which for me has been the best part of being in this coalition. I was like, yes, to the Dominicans, like, yes. So like, and now like nobody can badmouth a Dominican again in front of me. Like, that's it, right? But yeah, so I think that, the efforts that we do in the coalition is mostly, right, like putting pressure and protesting, right? And putting out statements. Like, it's a pressure space. It's not, gonna go testify in Congress and do those other things. I think we leave that for the liberals to do. That's the type of fight I think is important. I'm not trying to do it, but this coalition is interested in putting pressure and showing, right, the full picture of empire and how it moves, right, through the OAS, Organization of American States, through the United Nations, right? Even if we know obviously all of that is just the US manipulating, but we can't undermine the power interests of other territories and countries in this world, right? And that's part of what the coalition wants to continue to hold up. I'll stop there.
Right on. Thank you.
So on that note, thank you for coming on. This has been the RemiX Morning Show. We're a little over, but obviously we thought this was so much more important than to go over and not end with our usual way. So we want to thank you, Dr. Prosper. Stay safe. And we will see folks tomorrow on the RemiX Morning Show.
And shout out to Phil Winter as well. Thank you, Dr. Prosper. Appreciate everybody. And I think the ear doctor is going to take us out. But thanks everybody again for another great program. See you tomorrow morning. RemiX Morning Show, BPM. Peace.
Peace.